There we go.
All righty, so it's 4:31. We'll call a meeting to order. Just as an intro, there's new protocols for non-members. They will be kept on mute and asked to submit their questions through the chat box. While we value the information from the public, we've had problems keeping the meeting under control in the past with a large number of follow-up questions, and then someone else would follow up on a follow-up question, and we just couldn't keep the focus where we needed to. So that's where we're at. Since there is nobody else on, if it stays that way, we can give Alfonso the courtesy of we won't have to necessarily keep Alfonso on mute. So do we have an approval of the agenda for this month?
Motion to accept.
Okay. Brian, you good with it?
Second that.
Okay, so we have the agenda approved. Everyone get a chance to look at the meeting minutes? They seemed okay to me.
And motion to approve.
Yeah.
Okay. Brian,
the minutes, I second that. Yeah.
All righty. So
Jerry, have you spoken to Sheila? Have you heard anything from her, or has she responded?
Sheila Carpenter?
Yeah.
No, she hasn't responded to a single email we've sent.
Yeah. Actually, since we don't have the public on here, this to me was kind of the acid test, because this is her ballpark. You know, this is her wheelhouse. And if she's not going to show up for this meeting, I'm going to try and reach out to her after this and just say, hey, if you can't do it, fine. Just, we'll get someone. Oh, that's Marilyn. Okay.
Yeah, go. There you go.
All right, Marilyn, you didn't miss anything. We just approved the agenda and the meeting minutes, and I guess everybody's got a copy of the chair's report. No big surprises.
Jerry, I did have a question on the chair's report. I wasn't sure if you're going to read through it, but I did have a question on it.
Oh, go right ahead.
You mentioned the food service places and everything's closed, and probably at this point, I think it was Starbucks was the last man standing.
Yep.
But I recall last year a presentation where Mark had really pushed for this, and you do mention him in there pushing for this.
Yeah.
But there was supposed to be a lot more vendors and carts and other offerings to compensate for the places that were closed. Whether it's, the pretzels or pizza in a cart, drinks in a cart, or I think they told us even Hudson News may make pop-up locations throughout that area in order to have some different offerings. And we said that, well, that wouldn't be sufficient because they only sell packaged goods.
Wait, Hector's just
where are we with it? What's there, and are they upholding the commitment that they had made?
Hector's going to have that as part of his report.
Okay.
We did get some information. To the best of my knowledge, it's just going to be like 2 or 3 Hudson News stands, but we can, when it's Hector's portion of the meeting, we can definitely.
Yeah, I'll hold off on my comments till then. Okay.
All righty. Well, again, we know the fare hike has been postponed. The service cuts took effect in January 25th, about 10%. We can discuss with Hector the whole storm procedures and why they, did what they did and how they did it. And then the last thing, which starting February 10th, the Loyal Railroad is going to add the Metz Willets Point stop on all Port Washington branch trains. And they'll keep that going as long as City Field is going to be a vaccination site, which I think is a great thing. Alrighty, so like I said, Hector will provide updates in his portion of the segment. And
Jerry, may I just add one thing to the report?
Yeah.
The board is scheduled to vote on toll increases next week. So that is the board, the the fare increases and the toll increases are voted on separately. So the toll increases will be voted on. I'm not sure when the board books will be out to see what the recommendations are, but they'll be out in the next few days.
I cringe every time I have to go across the Verrazano Bridge. I mean, thank God they only they hit you one way, but the next fare increase is probably going to be what, $20?
I thought that they implemented two-way toll, re-implemented two-way tolls there.
Yeah, they're going to re-implement it on that bridge two-way.
Oh,
yeah.
They did do that? Okay.
Yeah.
Lisa, do you have any, Ian, or maybe this is a Hector question. Do we think that there are going to be a massive increase on that? Do you have any feeling of what it's going to be?
Well, I just know from protocol, from the process side of it, is they, whatever they went out with to the public, I don't believe that they can go any higher than that. And there was a range that they went out with. I don't recall specifically what Bob Ferran talked about, and Hector, maybe you know what the budget assumption was. But one of the proposals also at that time was time of day fare rates. I don't know if that's going to be implemented or it's going to be voted on, or what the recommendation is going to be.
Yeah, because they have time of day now for like George Washington and Lincoln Tunnel, I believe. If you get there before 4 o'clock, it's a lower rate to go across, but not Throgs Neck, Whitestone, Triborough, etc.
Well, those are Port Authority bridges, right? So it'll be interesting to see, because as we know, the traffic has come back. Toll increases traffic has increased. Toll revenue has increased a lot more than fare revenue and ridership.
Even though Sheila proved me wrong when I said that I thought that there was more cars on the road last time.
No, I think probably now.
I think it's increased. Yeah.
Yeah, it's.
I can double check.
So we've been joined by a member of our public, another member, Ron Troy. Thank you, Ron, for saying hello. Ron, as you probably saw in the meeting notice, if you have any questions or would like to raise anything, please put it in the chat and we'll take it from there. Thank you.
Lisa, did Cynthia Wilson confirm a time that she was going to get on?
Cynthia has joined us.
Oh, Cynthia has joined us.
She has.
I'm here. Yes, I am.
Alrighty, well then, without further ado, okay, for everybody, Cynthia is currently the director of the MTA's Homeless Program Office, which is tasked with cultivating multi-agency relationships to develop initiatives and partnerships to address homeless activity on MTA property. Ms. Wilson provides leadership to the program coordinator or contractor, provides outreach and case management services to homeless people using the transit and commuter rail systems as a surrogate shelter. And Ms. Wilson also directs and develops the agency liaisons at 3 of the operating agencies, New York City Transit, Metro North Railroad, and Long Island Railroad, regarding their program strategies, focus locations, program resources, and funding expenditures. Ms. Wilson has served as a director for the MTA since November of 2019. Ms. Wilson, the table is yours. And we have to unmute her.
Oh, you are.
You do that.
All right. I'm so sorry. I apologize. Thank you
right.
so much for the invitation. I appreciate it. I'm happy to share information about our program. So there is a presentation. Lisa, will you be able to share the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, that'll be great. Just
a
few slides.
Let me just sure I know how to do that. This one. Okay, great.
Yep, that did it, I think. There we go.
All right, there we go. All right, so this is the homeless program support. And if we can go to the first slide. So I'm going to talk about homeless outreach at Penn Station specifically, but just broadly. The following slides describe, the organizations involved in addressing the challenge, the magnitude of the homeless outreach challenge within MTA, and enhance communication and coordination to move the homeless off MTA properties into appropriate shelters. So the MTA is committed to its customers and communities it serves, recognizing the importance of helping transition homeless from the inadequate shelter of the MTA transportation system to appropriate shelters that provide security and social services. The MTA continues its drive to provide homeless services through our contracted providers. So the next slide outlines our separate contracts that we currently have. So we can go to the next slide. So there are currently 4 separate contracts that are in the process of consolidation to create synergy and consistency throughout the MTA network. Contract number 1 is the New York City Transit Subway contract. The Social Service Contract Authority is New York City Department of Homeless Services. The Police Authority is NYPD Transit Bureau. And the shelter provider is New York City Department of Homeless Services. Next, the contract that I directly manage, the second contract is the Penn, GCT, and New York City outlying railroad stations, the commuter rail contract. And the Social Work Service or Contract Authority, not social work, is MTA headquarters. We directly manage that contract. And MTA PD is the policing authority, and New York City Department of Homeless Services is the shelter provider. Our third contract is the Metro North Northern Counties contract for stations north of the city. Metro North directly manages that contract. MTA PD and local municipal police are the policing authority, and New York State and local communities are the shelter providers. Lastly, Long Island Railroad County stations in Nassau and Suffolk counties. Long Island Railroad directly manages that contract with SUS, Services for the Underserved. So that's for out east. And the policing authorities are MTA PD and local municipal police. And the shelter providers are New York City, local communities out east. All right, next slide. And going forward, all the contracts will be, that I referenced, will now be consolidated with MTA headquarters. Again, so that gives us consistency and synergy among contracts and scopes of work. So our contract with Bowery Residence Committee for outreach is primarily for GCT, Penn Station, and outlying stations in New York City. And although homeless outreach is not our core competency, MTA we invest a lot of effort. And with the expertise of BRC and housing resources provided by the Department of Homeless Services, we offer homeless people alternatives off MTA property. Now, the challenge is acceptance of services is voluntary, and social service providers work very hard to gain the trust of all clients to get them connected to the services and housing resources that they so need. So this third slide, which is the organizations that are tasked to help the homeless. One, we have the contracted provider, Bowery Residence Committee at Penn Station. We also have the policing agencies, MTA PD, NYPD, for the subways that surround Penn Station proper, and Amtrak PD. Okay, so our outreach providers, our stakeholders, and MTA PD, they work together to get the homeless the help that they need. And there is a continuing communication. We have weekly meetings, check-in calls, monthly meetings that we check in and coordinate between stakeholders. And those stakeholders include MTA Long Island Railroad station employees. They are boots on the ground. They're able to identify individuals who may need help, and we are able to get those resources to those individuals so they can get the help that they need. We have MTA PD, again, Amtrak PD, Amtrak, customer services. We work closely with Amtrak and New Jersey Transit, and again, the NYPD transit bureaus. So the goal is to share best practices, such as joint outreach initiatives. We pool our resources together to get the homeless the services that they need. And in pooling resources together, meaning that there may be areas in Penn Station where homeless may, again, be in need of help, whether it's detox, whether it's a shelter bed, whether it's case management, mental health services. We have BRC who's able to assess those clients and get them the help that they need. It's a garden variety of the population. Different populations have different needs. So they are the experts. That's their core competency. And that's why we have the contractor BRC. And they work closely with the Department of Homeless Services, who provides beds, shelters, and other facilities and resources for the homeless that tend to come into Penn Station. So we want to ensure that everyone in the transportation is safe and secure. And one message we want to get out is that it's not safe to be in the transit system. You know, there are some hazards, if you will, for those individuals who tend to shelter and entrench in transit systems. So we want to, again, get them the help that they need off of MTA property. So to help a homeless person in need, you can always call the MTA PD. You can call BRC's Homeless Helpline. They have a helpline, 212-533-5151, or a terminal or station employee, and they will be able to contact BRC to get the help that they need. So that concludes my presentation. I don't know if anyone has any questions.
Yes, I think we'll have several. How often do you actually get out into the field to see what BRC is doing?
I get out into the field very often, at least 2 or 3 times a week as I travel through the system. So it's at Penn Station. I was just out at Penn Station the week before last, actually, at 34th Street, 7th and 8th, Penn Station. We had a joint op actually with MTA PD, Amtrak PD. It was overnight. And we had BRC, who also holds the social service contract for Amtrak, walk around, engage individuals, and get them to accept services, convincing them to accept services off MTA property. So yes, and it's not only for Penn Station. Remember, all of the contracts, the subway contracts, was out at West 4th Street, actually I was out at, and it's not only Penn Station, 125th Street on a 4, 5, and 6, where there is at 125th, 4, 5, and 6, and Metro North Station, because we have individuals that traverse between the subways and the commuter rail. So I'm all over the system. I was out in Jamaica at the Flushing Station to make sure that individuals are not becoming entrenched in the waiting areas, as well as Sufton Boulevard and the Long Island Railroad Jamaica Station. So yes, I am out in the field. We also have a team of analysts that are out also that are helping us coordinate the homeless outreach effort between stations personnel, the MTA PD, NYPD, and BRC. So that coordinated effort again, we do have analysts that help my office, because we had 2 people. So if you look at all those service contracts, it was myself. We just got another person that's part of my team, January 2020, and we make quality assurance checks out in the field unannounced every month.
The reason I ask is, again, this is my perception, and I think it's the perception of some of the other members of the council, that while this all looks great on paper, it's not really working in practice. Maybe because there's less commuters, the homeless are more noticeable. They're not really hidden. They're not going like in the back alleyways or back hallways. They're like right out in front. The panhandlers are much more aggressive these days, maybe because there's less people to panhandle off of.
Yes.
And it doesn't seem like anybody's doing anything about it. Even the MTA police, you very rarely see them move them along. This morning is a perfect example. I got off at the West End concourse, and just walking from the West End concourse to the entrance to the Queens-bound E-train, I saw six homeless individuals sleeping on the floor in that corridor, spread out. And it's like, this is, 100 yards, and there's six people right there. And no police officers moving them along. No one seemed to be terribly concerned. And I've had to wait in the past couple of weeks. I've had to wait a couple of times in Penn Station, and you see all sorts of various characters. Like I said, aggressive panhandlers, people that have obvious mental distress. And it's like, what's going on? Now, we understand there's a perception, a lot of the homeless have a perception that the shelters are dangerous and, they'd rather not be in the shelters, but, sleeping on the floor in Penn Station, that's not a solution either. So I guess what I'm asking is, do you have the resources that you need to get the job done? And if you don't, what resources do you need, and how can we help you get those resources? Because whatever's being done isn't working. And we want, just the quality of life, not just for the commuters, but, for these poor people themselves, we'd like to see what we can do.
Yeah, so one of the challenges that we face is that acceptance of services is voluntary. And the outreach provider engages the individual over a period of time to gain their trust. That's one. Two, for those individuals that are outstretched and are violating our rules and regs, the MTA PD or Amtrak PD and or NYPD, depending on the jurisdiction, they are charged with getting folks up and keeping them moving. Penn Station is a public place. We can't say homeless people can't be there, but what we want to improve the quality of life in that if they are there, we have services and we are offering services, we're engaging them, trying to gain their trust, and that there are no unacceptable behaviors that are being performed because they will be addressed by the police. We know it's a societal issue. So we understand it's a complex issue. And what we try to do our best is through best practices. And those best practices include the partnership and coordination with stakeholders. So just as the police that walk around, they may move that person along, that person may come around, walk around Penn Station proper and come back to that same spot. So, we understand the frustration, we understand the complexity, but what we try to do through our contractor is provide the services in hopes that at a certain point in time that they will accept those services and they will be able to get into the continuum of care that the city is providing. And that's our goal and our mission. How can we get these individuals the help that they need where they are not affecting the quality of life for our customers and the station environment? But we understand it's a challenging problem. And MTA PDA, we work very closely with them. They do welfare checks, see if individuals are okay, try to get them up and get them moving and keep them, moving. But again, Long Island Railroad, Amtrak PD, Penn Station proper is a public place. So we do the best that we can with the resources that we have to get them moving. So, and also for BRC, if they are, they have teams, we have a clinical coordinator, they make the assessment and they place the individual off MTA property. That's the model that we follow, and we have the resources in place. Now, if we, on a broader scale, as far as beds, resources, facilities to house the homeless, unfortunately, it's not our core competency. We depend on the city to provide those services. So we have BRC link the clients to those services in hopes that those clients will get into this continuum of care and get the permanent placement and housing that they need.
Larry, I think you had a question.
Yeah, we're talking city, but let's jump out to Long Island for a second. In your PowerPoint, it said that New York City Police takes care of it. You said in your statement, you said New York State. And the question of the hour is, who takes care of things on Long Island? Because there are people in waiting rooms. Nassau County Police don't want to have anything to do with it. They say it's outreach, somebody else's outreach. And you've constantly just said New York City, but what about Long Island? What about Suffolk County? What about homeless that are in waiting rooms, platforms, especially waiting rooms, not platforms at this time of year? Who takes care of them, or what do we do about that?
Cynthia,
So,
I can jump on that one if you like.
Sure, okay.
Yeah,
Thanks.
so the railroad managers, we have SUS services for the underserved. We have our own contract on this program. So they're responsible for engaging individuals at Long Island stations. So basically any stations that we have hotspots, we get a call from a mayor, we get calls from customers about people at waiting rooms on platforms, we engage them. As Cynthia says, these people, it's voluntary. So when we do this outreach, it's our vendor. We have some of our stations folks, and we also, MTAPD comes with us. And also we invite the Nassau and Suffolk, some of their social service agencies and providers, because the goal here is to get people help. As Cynthia says, it takes multiple engagement with these folks before they kind of open up to trust and then, perhaps take the placement that they're entitled to. But a lot of times, they don't want it. Like a recent example is in Great Neck. The new mayor in Great Neck reached out back in December. So we set up a site visit with him, with our vendor, with the police, and then they come at different times. So like they came once in the morning, they came once in the evening, they came once overnight. Because the goal is to engage these people when they're there.
Well, if we observe something, what is the best way to get something done? Who do we contact? And I don't want to bury you with 27 emails a week.
We're getting them anyways, but I mean, I don't manage it, but if you let me know if there's an issue somewhere, let us know. And I give it right to the police and our folks, and then they jump on it.
Particular hotspots that we're hearing now is pretty much the Babylon branch in Nassau County, the upstairs waiting rooms. They seem to congregate there, and I believe loitering is still, something where they can move you along, right?
They can move them along, and then, but the police, unfortunately, they can't stay there. So as soon as the police,
that.
And then on the Babylon branch, they kind of go to station. So it's been a constant struggle there, because you get them out of one station, they just go to the next station. So it's like a cycle that they follow.
Well, that you could be correct on that, because that's kind of what we're hearing is that, sometimes it's Belmore, sometimes it's Merrick, sometimes it's like interchangeable, but they just seems to be that particular area, so to speak.
No, and then one. This is just anecdotally, but a lot of those stations, like Seaford, Merrick, I think Belmore, they have like these gazebos at the parking lot level.
Yeah.
So again, that's another problem. They'll go there, then the town kicks them out, then they come to our station and they go back and forth. Another thing I've learned from dealing with this the last few years is that some of these people aren't actually homeless. They're actually, they're in shelters, but during the daytime they have to leave the shelters. So, they're supposed to be trying to find a job or something. So then they are asked to leave, and then they come to our stations a lot of times during the daytimes. And then they go back in the evenings. They actually do go to a shelter.
Well, that makes sense also because unfortunately, and this is a battle we've fought with the railroad forever, lot of evenings you close the waiting rooms. You know, they're locked, so they can't, you know, they can't get in. So it's usually during the day that you would see the, you know, the homeless in these situations.
Again, it's a societal problem. So we do work with the local mayors and towns. So when there's a big issue in a certain area, then that's one of the things that, you know, limiting the station hours, not to keep them longer, unless it's extreme weather, then we still keep them, you know. I know you had the situation at Patchogue we had it, the snowstorm last week, but we do tend to keep the stations 24/7 during, you know, extreme weather, whether it's snow, cold, or heat.
Does anyone else on the council have any questions?
Okay,
oh, Lisa, go ahead.
Good.
Lisa, you have a question?
Yes, I was struggling to unmute myself. I just wanted to ask about, you know, some of the things we read about are the jurisdictional issues at Penn Station, and when Amtrak police are, you know, who's in charge? Is Amtrak and Amtrak police the leading agency at Penn, or does it make a difference what level you're on? And does NJT, right? I see a lot of congregates at the NJT area as well, if they're engaged also.
Right, so for Penn Station, and Hector, you can speak to this, but Amtrak owns Penn Station. So Long Island Railroad leases. The policing authority for the Amtrak level is Amtrak PD. And also they are the policing authority for New Jersey Transit. So there's an agreement between, I believe, New Jersey Transit Police and Amtrak, that Amtrak polices New Jersey Transit. MTPD is responsible for the Long Island Railroad Concourse and the Long Island Railroad lease property, from my understanding, and NYPD subways, the 34th, 7th, and 8th Avenues.
Now, wait a second, did you say NYPD is the subways, and then the MTA police or the station?
Yes, the Long Island Railroad, the concourse level. Yes.
Because I'm glad you mentioned that, because I had a situation, well, it was a year or so ago, where there was a problem with some homeless people, and I went to tell the officer, and it was a matter of a corridor. I think it was the corridor leading up to 33rd Street before we had the brand new entrance. And he said, it's not my jurisdiction. I'm an MTA cop, you need a New York City cop. And it's like, it's 50 feet away. He says, no, that corridor is not our jurisdiction. And I was shocked that I figured a police officer is a police officer is a police officer, that, I mean, that they actually had boundaries. And at that particular time, I haven't been there recently, but the portion by Penn Station was tiled, and the portion to the corridor was just like plain concrete. And he actually said, you see the tile? That's mine. You see the concrete? NYPD. Wow. I had to go to work, so I wasn't going to argue with him. Just like, but I was flabbergasted, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah, no, that's understood. And we hope that, and there are some officers, regardless of jurisdiction, if there's a condition that needs to be addressed, they will address that condition. And that's my experience. I will say though, if you see an individual in Penn Station, as I said, my office directly manages the contracts within New York City. So for Penn Station, GCT, if you see an individual who is in need or homeless condition that needs to be addressed, you can always contact me. I can give you my information, and we will get BRC and or MTAPD to address. So I just wanted to make that available. And also, that if you see a condition in Penn Station, a homeless person who is in need or who wants services, you can contact the BRC helpline, and that's 212-533-5151. I'll repeat, 212-533-5151.
I will share your information with the council members.
Sure. Thank you, Lisa.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so Cynthia, Larry here again. I just think that there has to be more attention in Penn Station to mainly the West End platforms. I mean, I've seen more. I don't want to use the most incorrect term. Needy people. I don't know what the right term is. People that need help on that side of the station more than the main side of the station. In my findings, when I went through Moynihan, I didn't see anybody, but there was a lot of police and other protective services that were walking that area, where down by the subway stations, the E-train area and things like that, where there's a lot of people that are congregating, there was nobody. And there was a lot of people that are congregating there. And you talk about the area where you go down from the main Penn Station underneath down to the E-train, that area, there's always a bunch of people there on a regular basis. And they're always there. And I don't know if it's you or BRC or whoever should take a closer look at that and be a little more attentive to people in that vicinity.
Sure. So you're talking about the area by the 8th Avenue ramp, the ramp that leads into the ACE. We know that individuals congregate there. It was a location that, in our meetings with stakeholders, the station's managers, remember, we work with the employees. This customers report it, whether it's trash, whether individuals with lots of belongings, whatever conditions that are reported there, we try to address one through BRC to get that person the help that they need. If the individual is violating rules and regs, we will have a police officer address and move that person along. So that location is on our radar. We're well aware of 34th Street and AC&E. We're well aware of the 34th and the 1, 2, and 3, the passageway between the local. We know individuals tend to congregate there. So we are aware of those spots. And what we do is try to notify our partners, the police, when there's a condition, when we receive a complaint or referral, and we try to vector resources, whether it's PRC, MTAPD, or NYPD. So we understand, and yes, those areas are familiar to us, especially 8th Avenue. In the warmer weather, and we know about seasonality, of course, individuals, because it's cold, they tend to come down into the transportation environment where it's safe or perceived to be safe. And then warmer weather, they tend to transition back up stairs on the sidewalks. And we know that through our meetings and enhanced communication, that all along 8th Avenue, there tends to be individuals that are really in need of detox services and in need of services. And we try to get them those services through our contractors.
Just to follow up, I think I mentioned this earlier, what Larry was saying. I went through there this morning at 6:45, 6 separate individuals sleeping on the ground, and that one space right there down the ramp by the ACE. And it's just like, it was terrible. It was heartbreaking, but.
Yes. So when you see that, if you can, and to, you can call 311, or if you see an MTAPD officer or NYPD officer, we also have security in those areas as well. So we do want to get that information and address those individuals in those conditions.
Okay. Anyone else? Anything in the chat from the public, or? Oh. All right, Cynthia, appreciate you stopping by, and
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ryan, I think we missed your hand.
Oh, Brian was trying to say.
No, it was waving.
Oh, okay.
Not a raising a hand.
Okay. All right. Well, that being concluded, we'll move down to Mr. Garcia, sir.
Good
you got
evening.
your report? There it is.
Yep. So COVID, I think after the holidays, we were seeing, a link with some employees in quarantine and stuff, but that we're getting out under control. And we've also been, getting employees getting vaccinated. We've had opportunities for them at the Javits Center. We have, I think, 30 spots every day for railroad employees. And also in Nassau and Suffolk counties, they're giving us some spots for, for our employees also. So we're filling those spaces as we get them.
That's why my station was closed.
Yes, that they had to go to get. Well, one of the things is, we're prioritizing the frontline employees. They get first dibs, but then we have office and managers on kind of like a standby list. So if people don't sign up or there's conflicts, then we lose those spots. So then we have people on standby to send them in. So people are on short notice, they can go.
Can you add us to your list?
Actually, I got lucky. By being on a standby, I went 2 weeks ago. I got my first. So, service changes. So we had a timetable change a few weeks ago, and then last week we made some adjustments. We didn't really add more trains, but we added some stops to some trains on some of the complaints where there were some gaps, and then we're monitoring it, to see if there's any. Early on, it seems like we're getting a lot of complaints about overcrowded trains. Trains were, there were more customers on some trains, but I think people have been used to a lot of empty seats, and now the trains were at capacity, but there wasn't a lot of empty seats, so like people kind of had to sit near other people, so they were uncomfortable with that. But it seems to have subsided a little bit, and then we'll see. We have another timetable coming up in March to support some track work. So there are going to be further adjustments to the schedule in March. Penn Station vendors. So, as some of the stores are being closed for the construction there, we did get a contract, somebody there to have some pop-up services. It's going to be kind of limited, and it's going to have to also be moved, because based on the construction, where they can store stuff and when they can be is going to be changing. So they're going to have to be mobile. So we're just trying to provide some amenities, but it's not going to be, everything that people were used to. But
when would that begin? Because all the stores closed last Monday. So I mean, the only thing you got left is you got one Starbucks, and I think they're scheduled to close within the month, if I'm not mistaken. But everything else, Rose's Pizza, all that gone.
I'll find out. I'll get back to you tomorrow, because I know the board, we approved the contract last month to order a vendor to do it. So I'll get you an update on exactly when they're going to start.
Yeah, because Hector, I know that Mark and I were talking about this for the time, and there was an issue because Vornado owns this and you own that, and they're paying rent to this. So it was a territorial thing of whose carts and what. So I don't know wherever that was left out.
No, but we're gonna be issuing the contract for those temporary carts. I believe at the end of the new construction, I believe Mordano may control all the spaces at the end of the construction. But for now, we're going to be able to provide those carts.
We thought there was going to be, or I kind of walked away from that discussion last year, is as the brick and mortar spots closed, the carts would be there shortly after, not such a long lag in between them exiting and the cart showing up.
No, that's what was supposed to happen, but it doesn't look like that has happened.
Yeah, any idea what the carts will be providing? I mean, obviously they're not going to be serving pizza or anything like that, but I mean, yeah, will it be like a Krispy Kreme cart selling donuts in the morning, donuts and coffee? Is it just going to be like newspapers and soda? What
popcorn?
Do we have any idea what's?
I'll find out what the mix is, but I don't have it offhand right now.
Even in Auntie Anne's, Auntie Anne already had a cart. I don't know where it went. It was.
No, because again, some of the, based on the construction, there was some storage spaces that some of these vendors had,
right.
And then they don't, they need those spaces and they don't have the access to them, so that has hurt them also. That's why it's going to be very limited because of that.
Well, I think that's what happened to Auntie Anne's, because there was an Auntie Anne's store, which I guess they got all their pretzels and stuff from, and stocked the cart and went around, and now that store is gone. So they got, you know, they got no place to get the food.
Yeah,
from.
even Taste in New York, that they had a pop up. You know, the same thing happened with them. The store space that they had available, they lost it.
I mean, hopefully you can get something like, you know, like Krispy Kreme has a store upstairs, so maybe they can get a cart and come downstairs. I don't know, you know, but at least they'd have a place to get a supply of donuts from.
It was in the chat, Ron said, and I just wanted to say this because I think it's probably what we're getting at. It would be nice to get a list and layout of pop-up food vendors short-term, and plus a longer-term feel what happens after.
I mean, I would think whoever the vendor is that's going to get any kind of carts, it's going to be a gold mine per se, because there's nothing else. When you're the only supplier there, you got a good business going.
So Lisa, I'm going to reach out tonight by email to real estate, and I'll put you on the email because they're the ones that are actually managing this. But I'll put out the request.
Thank you.
We'd really appreciate that. All righty.
The last thing is the thing I didn't want to talk about, but you want to talk about M9s? I'm just kidding. So yeah, so last month at the board meeting, there was a CPOC report about the status of the M9s. Delivery of them has been delayed. We've accepted 70 cars that are in service, which is about 6 or 7 trains a day that are in circulation. The total order was 202, and we only got 70 out of 202, so it's still 132 that they owe us. Some of them are on site; they're being tested and they're making their way to the system. The main issue has been there've been some quality issues that we found, so we haven't wanted to accept those cars with those issues. What we didn't want to happen is that you accept these things with these minor issues. None of the issues were, say, safety or weren't safety related, but we didn't want to accept this, and then all of a sudden there's a problem, then we have to take the cars out of service, and so we rather hold them, hold their feet to the fire, make sure that they address these, fix them, and adequately to our standards before we accept them. The good news is that the cars that we have accepted, they've been performing better than they're required to. The contract required them to have a MDBF of 150 miles. And actually the ones that we've accepted are performing to 300,000 miles. I mean, sorry, 300 miles. So it's like it's doubled their performance. So that's a good thing. And so they have to fix these things.
The M9s that you have run, are they spread throughout the system? They're not relegated to any particular branch, right? They're all over?
Yeah, they're all over. We circulate them in and out on different branches, so different people get a chance to use them.
That was, how many miles between break that? Because I thought you said 300.
No. It was supposed to be 150,000 miles.
1,000 miles. That's
is what it's performing.
Yeah, that makes.
No, you're freezing up, Hector. We only heard 150, not 150,000.
Yeah.
We heard 150 miles and 300 miles, not 300.
No, I misspoke.
Like that T-Mobile commercial from the Super Bowl,
That wouldn't even go to Montauk round trip, Barry.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. One round trip to Montauk.
Yeah. Alrighty. Do any of the council members have any other questions for Hector? Anything out of the?
I know I'm not a member, but I have a question. After the others go first.
You got to use the chat.
They don't have, there's the right emoji in it. No, I saw that that the Omni contract has been let for Long Island Railroad and Metro North. I don't know if that's news or it's just catching up in the industry news now, that's going to be moving forward. So is that is there anything that you can tell us about that?
No, I mean, I think they're going to start working on it because I believe it's not till next year that it's supposed to be, implemented. So they're just starting the process.
Anybody else? Hector, as always, we thank you for stopping by. It's greatly appreciated.
No problem.
Anybody have any questions regarding the snowstorm and how the railroad handled it? And I mean, I got most of my answers already, so I didn't want to. No, we're all good.
We do have a question in the chat. Do we have any detail on the eventual purchase of new diesel equipment? And again, if and when GCT ESA opens, how would diesel country riders get there?
I mean, right now, I don't know if I think getting any diesels, that's tied up with the capital program. So everything is on hold right now. So we can't say if what's moving forward or not at this moment.
Maybe we'll get an update at the board meeting next week on that.
This raises an interesting question, though. Can Grand Central Terminal or Eastside Access, can they accept diesels? Will they fit in the tunnels, or?
I have to check on that one. I'm not sure about that.
Okay.
I don't think it can. I don't think they can take the diesels.
I don't think so.
Can I answer that question? I was told that they designed the current diesel fleet to be about 3 inches too tall to fit in those tunnels.
That sounds about right.
Future ones, they may do the same thing again or not. I have no idea. It would be kind of smart if they didn't. Made them a little lower enough to fit in.
Are some of the contracts being jointly, or some of the cars though being jointly purchased by Metro North and LIRR, so that would help to address some of those issues with the over/under shoe? I mean, no, that's for the electric, but for so that they could be compatible.
It's the height and the curves of the tunnels they built for ESA, and that's the big question. And the decision they made in the 90s when buying the C1, the C3s, to not have them fit.
Hector, let me ask you one other question in regard to ESA. In regard to the Eastside Access, is it moving forward or is it on hold with this pandemic and all this kind of stuff? Are they continuously moving forward the way they are right now?
No, construction of Eastside Access, construction of third track, all those major projects are funded and they're continuing. It's only the new projects from the capital program that's on hold, but those projects that were underway are continuing. So we're still on schedule to be completed by the end of next year.
Okay. And by the way, I love Moynihan. Moynihan is gorgeous. Just a trivial thing.
If the trains don't pull up that far.
No, but it's really nice to walk through. It's actually.
Oh yeah, it definitely is. No doubt about it.
I look forward to the days when I have some time and I can kind of like wander and explore, some of the areas of that.
I mean, if you look up at Moynihan, the second level is kind of all, they have like electronic signs and like kind of posters and things, but that's all supposed to be, restaurants and shops and things when everything opens up again.
Mm-hmm.
Now the railroad has staff there, right? Isn't there a small, like, I don't know if it's a ticket office or something, but I thought I saw like a Long Island Railroad.
Yeah, we have like an information window, kind of ticket office information window there, and like with a board above with all the different train tracks. Yep, so we have a presence there.
Hector, let me ask you something really off the wall. We brought up at the fairholder meetings about possibility of other sources of tickets like 20 trip, 30 trip, 40 trip. Has anything like that ever discussed on the board or something of that nature, or is all that just like, I mean, I'm sorry, I don't know if this is the place to bring something like that up or if you even have any idea of any of this, but I was just like thinking of it.
I believe the 20 ticket has been part of a discussion. So when next time, I don't know if it was last month or it was postponed. So I guess when they give an update on the fair the fare hikes. It'll be part of that presentation of, the alternative, but the 20 ticket, I think, was being analyzed.
Yeah, because we mentioned 20, 30, and or 40 trip tickets for those that are no longer commuting on 5-day work schedules, doing 2 days, 3 days a week or something of that nature. That might be a good way to get revenue.
Mm-hmm. Also, that is being looked at.
Anything else for Hector, or? Hector, I think we're good.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, Hector.
Take care.
I think the only other thing we really have on the agenda was just a WageWorks update. Lisa, do you have something for us?
I do. I spoke with staffer in Representative Bryce's office, who's the liaison with the on the IRS side of the work that they do. And she was actually having a phone conference today with somebody over at the Treasury Department to make that first contact with the new administration and the new staff people that are going there. We talked about some of the complications, but there, it's an agreement between the employee and an employer and a third-party plan. Larry, I mentioned the experience that you had where you were able to get a refund, but not everybody is, because that's where the relationship management is. With the new Congress and new administration, she's hopeful that there is some hope. I've connected her, that particular staffer, with somebody in Nydia Velasquez's office who's also interested in working on this, and offered whatever kind of assistance we could provide, whether it's writing a letter, doing a press conference, putting forth riders. We did talk about what the Long Island Railroad is doing in allowing mail-in ride users to get 10 trip tickets, but that that's not an answer. That's a measure that's helping riders, but that's not the final way to get people their money back. So they're hoping that it could be handled at the regulatory level versus the legislative level. So those conversations are continuing.
Yeah, and Alfonso wrote up in Newsday. See, he's paying attention. We do read the articles about the quote unquote black market tickets that are going on Long Island. It's a very big thing right now.
Yep. I would say that the Congresswoman's office also reads Alfonso's articles, and we had a mutual admiration society about some of them.
Yeah, and it is a big thing. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What I can't understand is the big thing is, oh, well, it's pre-tax dollars. Just issue a 1099 and be done with it. Here's your $800 and here's a 1099 that says we gave you the $800 and then you pay whatever tax it is you owe on it. And it's like,
I can tell you what the problem is.
They complicate it so much. I guess it's government. It's when you're dealing with the government. It's
not only that, because I don't believe that money was fully non-taxed. It was partially taxed before it went into the WageWorks or whoever the administrative people are. So in other words, there's a different percentage. It was never fully non-taxable. There was sometime, might have been FICA, I don't know what it was, but there was something that was taken out as part of that money.
Okay,
I didn't know that. State and locality also, because it's pre-tax federal dollars.
Right, but not state, but not local. So that's where the issue was, because of the formula that they would need to do it. And like I said, and right now on Long Island, there's a lot of people. Hey, anybody need a ticket? I'll buy it for you, and I'll sell it back to you.
But it's a problem in search of a solution, and I think that we've now, I think that we've connected with somebody who's got the energy and the interest in making that happen. And because it's a national issue, I've also offered to raise it with some of the other national advocacy organizations to see if they can get people and elected officials from disparate parts of the country to, engaged, if that's what would be the most helpful.
Yeah,
I'm sure Jersey Transit is the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So Jersey Transit, when I reached out to our local advocacy network, I heard, well, it's not just not just the, you know, the riders who are represented by the advocacy organizations, it's the staff of those advocacy organizations that are facing some of those same issues. So they're definitely hearing it from riders across the tri-state area. So that's another way that we offer to help.
You know, since we have Alfonso here, I'm going to throw a question to him. Do you get any kind of feedback on your article on that, out of curiosity, from any elected officials or from any official organizations? I'm just kind of curious if you get any feedback on articles like that.
I do sometimes. I don't think I got feedback from anybody official on that one. I certainly heard from a lot of commuters in that situation. Whenever I write on that topic, yeah, I get a lot of feedback, probably more than most stories. So certainly a lot of people affected by it. You know, those stories very much touch a nerve. A lot of people looking for direction or just kind of thanking me for bringing it to the public's attention. Okay, but you never got any official or somebody higher up in the hierarchy to say, hey, we're going to try to do something, or, you know? No, I was in communication with Congresswoman Rice and quoted her in the story. I know she sent the 2 letters and she gave the statement that I used in the story. I contacted the IRS and they frankly didn't have a lot to say. I mean, I spoke with essentially a PR person at the IRS who didn't seem that up to speed on the situation and said he'd look into it and get back to me. He didn't. He sort of directed me or encouraged me to talk more to sort of tax experts, legal experts who, you know, might have a view. I know, speaking to the professor at Hofstra, there's a tax law professor, she encouraged me to reach out to, I guess there is like a national tax advocate. And this is like, it might be sort of similar to what you guys do, that it's like a government regulated body that advocates on the part of taxpayers, and encouraged me to contact that person about it. I didn't. Maybe that's an avenue. I don't know. Okay. Sorry to throw you on the. That's all right. Happy to talk. I'm sorry, but you were here. Got to take advantage of it.
Great. Anybody have anything else?
I got one last thing. I just want to compliment Sheila on her report. That I read your report, and I want to just throw it out publicly and just say it was a well-written, well done report. And to give you acknowledgement.
Thank you so much.
I'll second that motion.
I'm glad. Thank you.
Me too. And we can ask Alfonso why he hasn't written about it yet.
Hey, we want Alfonso to come back. You know, let's not chase him away.
Feel free to send it my way. I don't think I'm aware of it.
We'll make sure that. I think you might have been on vacation when we released it.
All right, if there's nothing else, then I'll do the motion to adjourn. If there's nothing else,
I'll second it.
Okay.
All in favor? Have a great evening, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Alfonso. Appreciate you stopping by.
Thank you, Jared. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, Lisa, I'm going to give you a call about something when we get off here. Okay, bye-bye.